Okay, this is from The Hill. President Trump this week launched a series of sustained attacks on news organizations, with the latest round focusing on prominent executives at CNN and NBC. The president has referenced fake news or attacked the media in a dozen tweets in the course of the past week, singling out specific outlets and reporters on multiple occasions. This is what Trump tweeted. "I just cannot state strongly enough how totally dishonest much of the media is. Truth doesn't matter to them. They only have their hatred and agenda. This includes fake books, which came out about me all the time, always anonymous sources, and are pure fiction. Enemy of the people." The president on Thursday took aim at two of the news organizations he has been relentlessly critical of. That's CNN and NBC. He said top executives of these networks should lose their jobs. This is what Trump tweeted. "The hatred and extreme bias of me by CNN has clouded their thinking and made them unable to function. But actually, as I have always said, this has been going on for a long time. Little Jeff Z," meaning Jeff Zuckerberg, "has done a terrible job. His ratings suck, and AT&T should fire him to save credibility." The president in recent days has seized on an admission from Lanny Davis, the attorney for Michael Cohen being Donald Trump's personal attorney for 10 years, that he was an anonymous source, Lanny Davis was an anonymous source for a CNN story that suggested the president had advanced knowledge of the June 2016 meeting at Trump Tower with campaign associates and a Russian lawyer. Davis has since acknowledged he's unsure of the veracity of the assertion that Trump was aware of the meeting beforehand. And Trump tweeted this: "CNN is being torn apart from within based on their being caught in a major lie and refusing to admit the mistake. Surprisingly, CNN and Carl Bernstein have stood by their reporting." Hi, I'm Michael Wan, your host for Michael Wan's Op-Ed Live, and this is LA County Assessor Jeffrey Prang, who is aiming to get re-elected in the runoff this November. Our show, Op-Ed Live, is not about left or right, it's about what's right or wrong. So what say you, Jeffrey?
So I think this is classic Donald Trump. Yeah. He attempts to divert from his own behavior, from the investigations against him, and for the corruption that has raked his administration by blaming the media. I think it's alarming. I think it's dangerous that the President of the United States continues to attack the media. His allegation, that no media is always 100% right. Sometimes they make mistakes. But to accuse them of being engaged in a conspiracy against them, to be engaged in fake news, is just nonsense. The entire country should be alarmed at his assault on the Fourth Estate.
Okay. But what do you think about this particular issue? If we just forget about the past issues, just this particular issue, I talked about it in our monologue, that CNN and Carl Bernstein, who's a contributor for CNN right now, so they came out with an article, and they came out on TV shows and on their CNN channel, and they were saying that Donald Trump knew in advance that there would be a Trump Tower meeting, the infamous Donald Trump Jr. and the Russian lawyer named Natalie something. I can't pronounce her last name. So, but Lanny Davis happened to be the source of this news. And now Lanny Davis is walking back. He himself said that it's not verified, and I made a mistake. And he came out on NBC News, I believe, during an interview, and Washington Post wrote an op-ed, a scathing op-ed against Lanny Davis. So doesn't this, just by the facts that I just said, doesn't this merit that CNN, doesn't CNN have to at least say we are sorry, and don't they have to correct themselves about this particular issue?
I don't know. I suspect that they don't, because one is that the president has been very, his statements about that Trump Tower meeting seem to be different every time he talks about it. It seems inconceivable that he was unaware of that meeting. I don't think there's anybody who is follow the story who believes that this meeting could have taken place without him being aware of it. Now, because he seems to have indicated in subsequent comments that he was aware of the purpose of the meeting, which was originally supposed to be about adoption, which the president himself has admitted that it was about getting dirt on Hillary. I think that if Lanny was a step ahead of himself in terms of the veracity of his statement, I don't think it takes away from the fact that this meeting took place. This meeting was highly irregular, if not improper, and that the noose is closing on what the president knew and when he knew it.
Okay, what I felt was I think CNN, among all the news media out there, is very corrupt. I mean, that's my personal opinion about CNN. The reporting that I've seen, I mean, I don't think Donald Trump can be 100% bad guy. You know, but if you watch CNN, everything he does, even him breathing is bad. I mean, that's the impression that I get when I watch CNN or MSNBC, but especially CNN. They seem to have this certain kind of vendetta against him. There's nothing positive about Donald Trump. I bet there must have been something positive about him for the past, what, now almost 1 year and 8 months, 9 months now. So on this particular story, I feel like CNN definitely, they have to retract. They do. Because they said, according to a source, that Trump knew beforehand. But that source happened to be Lanny Davis, and he himself admitted that. And Lanny Davis came out on interviews and said he made a mistake on that. Then, if me as a journalist, I would retract it. Because if you don't, then then I think you lose credit to many other sources that you have. So I think CNN got burned on this one, because Lanny Davis, probably he shouldn't have even said that in the beginning, but he made this gaffe, and that's why I think CNN has to correct this. If CNN doesn't correct this, and if they don't retract this story, I think they would lose tremendous. I think they already lost a lot, but I think they would lose further credibility. I mean, they would lose.
It's
everything. I think
it's possible. I think it's a de minimis issue. I think the bigger issue with CNN is that CNN is reporting what the president is doing and what he's saying, and what the president is doing and saying is offensive to many people in this country. It's creating complications for us in the world. And the stories are bad because what the president is doing is bad, and he doesn't like the fact that it's coming across as bad. That's why he doesn't like them. I don't think CNN is doing anything other than reporting the news, and the fact that what the president says and does is newsworthy, and he says more outlandish things than anybody in his position has ever done before. It's a whole cottage industry.
Okay. What I see it is, I think CNN and Carl Bernstein, they have to apologize. I think this is just a no-no. You know, me as a journalist, I mean, I've been in this field for quite a long time, and this is just a no-no. If my source burns me, I think I just have to say, you know, we got burned. I mean, that's how you gain credit. But they're losing credit every single time. This is not just the first time for CNN. I think it happened multiple times throughout the Trump administration. I do think they are blinded by their hatred towards the president. They need to be more objective. And I have yet to see any kind of positive Trump stories. Like, for instance, if I watch Fox News, they would sometimes come up with some positive stories about Obama. I remember there are those days. Not often, I would say, but CNN, I would say, it's like a pure 100%, you know, all the way anti-Trump from 1 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 100. So that's why I think many people, even the Democrat friends who I have, they tell me they don't watch CNN anymore. That's why their ratings are actually tanking, and they're lowest among the 3 news channel that is out there right now.
Well, CNN's news ratings have been low, going down for a very, very long time. But I would disagree. I think CNN does a better job of covering objective news than Fox does. Fox is almost a fully owned subsidiary of the White House and the Republican National Committee. I can't remember them ever saying anything nice about President Obama, but what they do now is they're clearly just a propaganda machine for the president. Okay.
For the June 2016 meeting at Trump Tower, I have an issue regarding that because the Natalie lady, the Russian lawyer, she met with, you know, Fusion GPS, right? Fusion GPS was a company that hired Christopher Steele, and how they got this Russia dossier. We're going to get more into that on our second topic. And so Natalie met with Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson before and after the 2016 Trump Tower meeting. So I feel like this was a setup. I always told you that regarding this, but you have your opinion, I have mine. I feel, as a journalist, CNN, if they do want to recover their reputation, because I used to watch CNN all the time, back in the O.J. Simpson days in the mid-90s, I think they did a marvelous job following every day of what went on. And I mean, even the Iraq War, you remember back in the early 90s, they did a marvelous job even back then. But I don't know why CNN has changed to such a different kind of news channel. They used to be more neutral. I believe they were the neutral one, and Fox News definitely conservative, and MSNBC being liberal. But now it seems like CNN made a business decision to go more left.
Well, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, I'm not thrilled with any of their business model, because most of their business models, they call themselves news, but they're not really news. It is a series of journalists who are providing opinion journalism. So it's all opinion. So we shouldn't be surprised it's opinion. The fact that they're calling themselves news, it's news from perspective. CNN headline news, that's usually just the news. That's what I watch the 30-minute show, so I know what's going on. But each of the hosts of Fox, of CNN, of MSNBC, each one of them approaches policy from a certain perspective. They are, it's like the op-ed page. So to call it news is inaccurate. And we shouldn't view it as news. We should view it as reading the op-ed page.
Like our show, we express our opinions.
Exactly. That's what this. We are not doing pure journalism here. We're adding a little bit of our own opinion.
Exactly. Okay, we move on to our next topic. President Donald Trump launched an attack against Bruce Orr, the Justice Department official. He used to be the #4 guy in the Justice Department, who has drawn intense scrutiny from Capitol Hill. Trump asked this on Twitter: "How the hell is Bruce Orr still employed at the Justice Department? Disgraceful. Witch hunt." The message came one day after Orr appeared behind closed doors with congressional investigators, who grilled him about the timing of his contacts with Fusion GPS, the firm that worked with former British spy Christopher Steele to create and distribute a salacious dossier about Trump's relationship with Russia. What's your thought on this, Jeffrey?
Well, I think that it's still clear to me that Trump, his closest advisors, and his administration had multiple and deep contacts with the Russians that they have failed to explain. And I think his attack on Bruce Orr, who was a modest level official in the Justice Department.
He used to be #4.
So, but there's still.
But he got demoted twice. Yeah.
The challenge I see, and it's possible he did something wrong, but the challenge I think is that Donald Trump is continuing to deflect away from his own engagement with the Russians during this campaign and his administration. My big question is, why is it that everybody of importance around Donald Trump had relationships with the Russians? What is it? What is he trying to hide? Why doesn't he come clean on this Trump Tower meeting? Why doesn't he tell us what his business relationships are with the Russians and show us his taxes to demonstrate that he doesn't have relations? But he continues to try to avoid answering questions for himself by pointing the finger at somebody else.
Yeah, I think regarding this issue, Bruce Orr, first I thought he was Chinese. It was OHR, but later on, I found out he's Korean American. I feel, Koreans, we kind of tend to feel guilty if a fellow Korean American does something. You remember back the Virginia Tech, massacre. That was he was a Korean American dude, right? His name was Seung-Hee Cho. And a lot of there was a huge amount of guilt in South Korea, having one of their, even though they're not South, he wasn't a Korean citizen. We have those kind of very connected.
Sure.
If a fellow Korean does really well, we kind of cheer for him. But if he doesn't do well, like what he did, what the Virginia Tech student did, then we feel kind of guilty about it. So Bruce Orr, anyway, he's now in the center of this whole Russia scandal, or Russia scandal / or fabricated Russia scandal, whichever, it's gonna be. I think it will come out. The truth will come out, whether it's really fabricated or not. I believe that it's fabricated. I know that you don't. That you think that Trump legitimately had relationship with Russians. I don't. The reason why Bruce Orr is getting all the attention right now for the past couple of weeks, and Trump has been mentioning him, I think, more than anybody else for the past couple of weeks. It's because he has contacted with Christopher Steele more than 60 times during the 2016 presidential campaign. So my question is, what is a Justice Department guy doing? I thought Justice Department person should be nonpartisan. I mean, they shouldn't root for any kind of party. And this dossier came from Hillary Clinton camp and DNC. And Christopher Steele was hired by Fusion GPS, right? And it seems like Bruce Orr, he had talks with Christopher Steele, and this talk continued, even though the FBI director back then, James Comey, said stop doing this contact with Christopher Steele because Christopher Steele leaked some Trump dossier information back then when we didn't know about what happened, what happened or did not happen in the Moscow hotel, right, regarding Trump. So he leaked these. I think he leaked it to Yahoo News, and that's when FBI cut off connection. You know, they severed connection with Christopher Steele, and even though FBI said let's not contact with this guy because he broke the protocol, Bruce Orr still continued to talk with this guy 10 times more afterwards. So to me, that feels very fishy. It seems like Bruce Orr is also in the middle of this Russia, in my opinion, fabrication scandal, and it turns out Bruce Orr's wife, Nellie Orr, Nellie Orr is also an employee for Fusion GPS. So Fusion GPS, which a company was hired by Hillary Clinton to dig up dirt, which is legal, right? Dig up dirt on Donald Trump. You can't have a lady who's working there and her husband working on a Justice Department office. To me, it seems like so many, conflict of interest. This is like corruption to the highest level. That's how I see it.
Well, there's a lot of what ifs. So first of all, Christopher Steele, the Fusion GPS is a research company.
Yes.
They were hired by lots of people to do different types of research. So they chose, one of their projects was originally hired by Jeb Bush to do research on the opponents. Then that research was taken over by Hillary Clinton. A member of the DOJ, it is not unreasonable to think historically that Christopher Steele was a prime contact for U.S. intelligence, that it's possible that they may have had reasons historically to be involved. The fact that his wife works for them, it could be that they have a relationship. Maybe they're personal friends. That's why they have that sort of contact. I will agree that in the context of this investigation, all these, the number of dots that are connected, the connection to GPS, his own involvement at the Justice Department, that at least that there were awkward moments, and that there may have been some judgment issues. Whether or not he played a major role, whether this was significant, I still believe that the attacks on him are once again an attempt by the president and his people to deflect the focus on the investigation as it relates to them.
Okay. Many people actually say that on the Democratic side, that it's a deflection about the special counsel investigation. But Bruce Orr, being the number 4 guy in the Justice Department, pretty much, it was the Attorney General. Back then, I think it was Sally Yates or Loretta Lynch, and the Deputy Attorney General, I think it was Sally Yates at that time, and number 3, I don't know. Number 4 is him, but he got demoted twice because of his contact with Christopher Steele. It doesn't look good. I mean, if this happened for me, whenever I see a Trump story, I tell myself, what if this happened during the Obama administration, or Obama being a candidate and George W. Bush, his number 4 guy in the Justice Department, having talks with an opposition research firm that was hired by, for instance, John McCain, having talks with, and his wife being, working in Fusion GPS. I think it would have been a major scandal.
So federal employees do it. Federal employees under the, I believe it's under the HART Act, which which limits their ability to be involved in partisan elections.
And I think he shouldn't have been.
They're not supposed. They're allowed to vote, but they're not supposed to get involved in campaigns. Whether this constitutes being involved in campaigns or not, it sounds as though the Obama administration did the right thing by demoting him twice. So if he was, as an employee, engaged in conduct that was inappropriate,
I think he was demoted after Trump was hired. Trump became
so,
president.
it's the one thing you'll find in any campaign is you'll find people in all walks of life and all types of jobs who have opinions, who may get involved or not involved.
So you're saying that he's a bad actor? He might be one of the bad rotten apples out there.
It could be that he was breaking some rules. It could be that he was exercising bad judgment. But I still think it doesn't take away from the fact that there were tremendous amount of interactions between Trump and his advisors and his senior staff and the Russians that are still unaccounted for. And the fact that there were other people on the periphery, on the Democratic side, especially given all the research and investigations that are going on in opposition research in the context of the campaign, the fact that you're going to find a few people in government who are interested and involved is not surprising.
But to me, it seems like there's a pattern of behavior that's coming out right now. I'm not talking about just Bruce Orr. You remember Peter Strzok, right? We talked about his text messages that he shared. He was a lead FBI investigator for the Hillary Clinton email scandal and the Trump-Russia collusion. And also, he was a lead investigator for the special counsel, but he got rearranged to HR department, and he got fired later on. For him to share those kind of anti-Trump texts, and Christopher Steele is known to be anti-Trump as you can get. This is what Bruce Orr actually wrote. He said that Christopher Steele has so much hatred towards Trump that he would almost do anything to try to stop him becoming president. That came out in one of the memos that Bruce Orr wrote. So it seems like there are so many anti-Trump. You can be anti-Trump. I mean, it's free, right? But I think if you're an FBI agent, especially if you're an FBI lead investigator, and also if you are working in the Justice Department, I think those things shouldn't be that much out in the open. And do you think Bruce Orr should deserve to be fired, or what do you think?
I don't know enough about it to make that judgment, but I do believe that the discussions of Strzok and Orr, once again, are distractions from the big level corruption that was engaged in by the president and his operatives. The fact that there's so many people around the president have been indicted, that the fact that there's still lots and lots of dots connecting to Russia and a lot of haze to determine that Mueller's trying to cut through to determine if there was indeed collusion. I believe that there's so much overwhelming evidence that when he releases his report, he's going to draw a thread through all that that's going to indicate that Trump and his people were engaged with the Russians to try to give himself an advantage in his campaign. And the fact that there were some minor operatives like Bruce Orr and Strzok who were expressing their opinions and willing around the edges, I think is going to be irrelevant in the grand scheme of things.
So can I ask you this question? Are you open to the possibility that this whole Russia-Trump collusion could have been a fabricated thing or a setup? Because I'll ask you this. I'll say something and then say some issues regarding this, and then I want to hear your opinion. Because to me, I try to just call strikes and balls and balls. I mean, as a journalist, I don't want to be a propaganda person who talks about policy. The left way is right or the right way is right, conservative or liberal. To me, it doesn't matter. As a journalist, I just want to see whether it's corrupted or not. I think you call balls ball and you call strikes strikes, and that's how I see this whole thing. To me, this seems fabricated because Hillary Clinton, and of course you mentioned Jeff, but at that time Russia was not in the picture yet. But after Hillary, Camp, and GNC hired Fusion GPS, and they paid $13 million in total. And they got in touch with Christopher Steele, the former MI6 agent, and he got this information, this Trump dossier, from the Russians. And the Russians actually, it came out on the Hill report yesterday, it seems like they got this information from 4 businessmen, according to the dossier. But the Russians who were mentioned in that dossier, they all came out and sued the Justice Department. And they said this whole thing is fabricated. And they sued not just the Justice Department, I think they sued FBI. They also filed a lawsuit against Fusion GPS, Christopher Steele, all of them. They said this whole thing is fabricated, and they want, they want to be in court. And to me, if you look at, I think we can talk about it next time. I read the Russia dossier, the Trump dossier. It doesn't make sense. It mentions that Michael Cohen went to Prague during that. Michael Cohen is mentioned 14 times in that dossier. And one of the lines, it says that Michael Cohen went to Prague, but Michael Cohen's passport does not show that he went there. And Lanny Davis, I think he also said that he didn't go to Prague. And Michael Cohen, this is also going back to our first topic about the CNN thing, the 2016 meeting. Michael Cohen, the personal attorney for Donald Trump, he was under oath when he said Donald Trump, the president, had no previous knowledge of this meeting. So he's in danger of perjury if he's now flipping. But now it seems like he's not flipping. Lanny Davis was, blowing this out of proportion. So to me, it seems like this is pretty much, I read the FISA application document. They used this Trump dossier to get the wiretaps on Trump campaign, the Carter Page volunteers. So to me, I'm not looking at this as a partisan issue. I'm looking at this as an investigative journalist. I think this is, to me, it feels very much a fabrication and a setup. And even the meeting, the 2016 Trump Tower meeting, the day before and after, the Fusion GPS founder, Glenn Simpson, to meet with Natalie, the lady who was in the center of this 2016 Trump Tower meeting, that also sounds very fishy to me. So I don't, even though if it's on the if somebody did this kind of hit setup to Hillary or Obama, I would criticize them too. But to me, it sounds so fabricated.
So, first of all, we're both lay people, so we only know what we can read. Mm-hmm. So you have to say there's always a possibility it could be fabricated. Who knows? I think it's extraordinarily unlikely that it is, for a number of reasons. One, the number of individual contacts by the number of people involved by Trump and his people around him.
Paul Manafort.
Manafort and Gates and Flynn and Donald Trump Jr. More, on top of that, the president's penchant for making statements and then turning around and coming up with a different statement on the same topic later on, also known as lies. The fact that the people surrounding the president are notorious liars and misleading in the truth, whether it be Manafort or Flynn or Cohen. There is no credibility in these people that the things that they state cannot be taken at face value because they have demonstrated that they're willing to dissemble and mislead the people.
Okay. I'll give you the last word after I talk about this. Paul Manafort, he got charged for what, 10 counts?
Yes.
8 counts or 10 counts, something like that, and he got 80-something years in jail, pretty much living the rest of his life in jail. I think that has nothing to do with the Russia collusion. It was his tax evasion and all sorts of things that he did 10 or 11 years ago. So to me, that is also the mainstream media trying to propagate. That is why I think many people view CNN and MSNBC or even the New York Times as fake news, because if you read the story, it's like, where's Russia? It has nothing to do with Russia. It's something else. They wanted to, even the judge, the T.S. Eliot, I think he was a judge during this Manafort case. Even he himself said, you're not interested, he said it to the special counsel team, you're not interested in charging Manafort. You just want to get President Trump. That he himself, for the judge to say that, I think it really shows how this whole thing is set up. And I even remembered that one of the jury, she was a pro-Trump supporter. She was a pro-Trump person. She was a Trump supporter. She said that this whole thing seemed like a witch hunt. She said, the jury said that, and she said all the juror members that she talked with, they were already ready to charge him. Being in Washington D.C., and that's what she said, that they were ready to put all guilty on Paul Manafort. So I don't know. To me, Paul Manafort issue had nothing to do with Trump-Russia collusion. They make it sound like that there's something really deeply connected between Trump campaign and Russia. And having the jury, even one of the jury said that, saying that they were ready to jump and just put guilty on Paul Manafort's head. It just, as a journalist, I think it's very sad to see the news media being so invested to bring down a United States president. To me, I mean, whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president, I think this whole thing, especially these kind of propaganda happening from the mainstream media, I think that's the most saddest thing that I see from this episode.
Well, I think that this administration is clearly and documentably the most corrupt administration that this country has ever had. There are more people with questionable ethics. There's more scandal going on. So it's not inconceivable to me that the media would focus on this. I also believe that there is a strategy that Mueller has employed, that he is attempting to narrow the circle to determine where the Russian corruption came from. He may be using the violations of the law, such as against Manafort, that he can document, again, attempting to close the circle. We don't know what his strategy is yet. We don't know what the final charges will be. He's still investigating, and the fact that he's charging Manafort on crimes that Manafort created before may just be a legal strategy to continue to put pressure on the others to shake loose additional information.
Well, what do you think about that question that I have? Do you at least have, will you consider the possibility that this might have been a setup to frame Donald Trump? Or you shut that off completely?
No, I think it's, in dealing with an issue like this, particularly when we don't know the facts, that you always have to leave room to be wrong. But I think there's so much information out there, so much corruption out there, it seems inconceivable to me that this is a setup. Because clearly you have people around the president who he trusted in senior positions who have committed crimes and admitted to it. His own attorney is turning on him. There's at least enough evidence there that tells me that this it is highly unlikely this is a setup.
Okay, got it. We obviously disagree on that point. But, well, that's our show for today. Our show is not about left or right. It's about being right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.